So coming back to the body and just feeling that body embedded in the field of gravity. So the body's center is here. So let's just try, let's just start. Just feel as though this is actually just really heavy, the dantian, and it doesn't really want to move, so it's stuck in the middle. But you want to move. So you have to move around it somehow. So just let the head go. Yeah, so just feel, even though this isn't moving, it's sort of stuck in the middle because it's so heavy. The weight is moving simply because you're actually tipping over a little bit. So here my weight is going a bit more into this foot, and then here a bit more into this foot. That's it. So we're wanting the movements to help us become more relaxed and more settled inside this body, inside this field. So if you wanted to see gravity, then in a sense you can turn gravity on when you go into the shower. You turn the shower on. That's what you're seeing, an image of gravity. Seeing an image of down. So we have that image inside our mind, so we can just come back to it whenever. So feel the two legs branching out from here. Yeah, so the dantian is like where the legs start. The legs stem from the dantian, hit the ground, and then root. And then feel the spine coming up and out into these. It's like a fountain coming up from the dantian and out to the arms. Now just try and feel as you tip over a leg, what that is doing, what the leaning is doing, is helping you down the outside of the leg, but it's drawing the inside up. So simply by leaning, by losing the vertical and leaning over, it's like I'm rolling. So this is coming under and this is trying to come over. So just try and feel that. So we're just separating the full and empty within the leg. So this is the full leg, but it also contains an empty component, which is the inside. So my outside is rolling under, and that just naturally just brings the inside up. It's like a wheel. As you pull one side of the wheel down, the other side goes up naturally. And just to So what we're trying to do really is separate the two halves of the body. Because we don't realize it, but we hold ourselves together with tension. So we tend to lock the two sides of the body together into this unity, which we call ego. So we're just trying to relax that so the two sides of the body have a sort of degree of independence. So it almost feels like a rift is opening up along that central line, which is just your mind relaxing. And then you really need the Danshan to actually cohere, to just hold the two parts together. Yeah, so I'm leaning to roll. I want to roll in action. So I'm getting under, but there's something coming up. So the obvious extension of this is just to lift the leg. Yeah? So as I roll under, and this side of my body just naturally comes up because this side is just going down. Yeah. So it's a very simple, full and empty, nothing complicated about it. Yeah, so if we can separate the two sides of the body, stop them holding on in a frightened way to each other, then we can get them working together. So the unity that ego produces tends to cancel out a lot of the energies and just produce a single thrust, which is forceful and hard and ignorant. So here I just want to just feel that rolling action that brings this. So you don't need to actually bring the foot right off the ground, just loosen it. You just bring the heel off the ground. You want that feeling of rolling like a ball. So all the time this is in the middle. So it's a precarious position. It's a difficult position to balance in. Now, one of the value of that is that it really helps us see the central equilibrium. So I have to keep a feeling of this wanting to rise constantly and this sinking in order to keep that stretchy relationship between the two halves. So this sense that I've just slipped into ultra slow motion rather than actually stopped. So this is coming up to get it to here. Now it keeps on coming up. It's just it's balanced by what I'm being pulled down by gravity. So I'm keeping a flow going rather than just locking it all out. Yeah, so we just, so that tension that would actually, it's very violent, that tension that will actually lock things together in order to produce an image of stillness. That's what we're trying to get out of. So here I can really feel the sinking and I can really feel the rising. And I just really just want to have those two flowing within me. And this position I'm in is just really delicate. And it's liable to collapse and crumble at any point. And it's that gives it its power. And then we're just looking, just equilibrating. Yeah? Is the up balanced by the down? Do I have more up than down? And it's not just physically, it's sort of in the mind. There's part of my mind is flowing down, part of my mind is rising up. Yeah, so we're just trying to put ourselves into a position where we have to get it right. Okay, so let's just come back to here. So again, just feeling the downshift. Yeah, so what the ego does, it gives us, the ego is like the one thing. Now what we are is two things at least. We're the left side and the right side, front and the back, and up and the down. So what the ego will tend to do is give us a sense that the body has this sort of unified stillness within it. Now what I'm wanting to do here when we stand is just open up and relax so much that there's a degree of independence between the feet. As though you're, I mean, the way to practice it in a way, you know, those platforms you can get that have a curved bottom where you have to really balance, that sort of thing. Or if you were standing on like ice and it's all cracking and your 2 feet have a degree of mobility between them. So you want that feeling. So when something inside you opens, so I have the ground beneath me. It's solid, it's firm, it's even. You know, that's what's really fucked us up, really. It's the evenness of the surface that we create for ourselves. So, you know, if you're walking in nature, then you're constantly changing the level of your feet because the terrain is not normally even if you're sort of climbing. And it's that sort of just adjusting to having one foot somewhere, another foot somewhere quite different, and having to make those constant adjustments as you're moving, that actually just brings a flexibility here that our modern city lives tend to, our minds just become hard because we get used to the flat surface. And so we bring a sort of evenness inside that robs us of energy. It makes us too symmetrical. It's too even. So we want this feeling that the 2 feet could actually move a little bit. This one could sink down into the ground. This one could rise up. Yeah? So that I no longer have that mental reassurance of an even surface, that an even surface will actually tend to produce. So because I know the ground is even, I bring like a level quality to my mind and into my body, which isn't really there. And it actually robs the body, of detail and energy. So just as we're standing here, just sort of feel as though your feet can sort of play. One can sink down, like you're standing on like a trampoline. Or better still, like 2 trampolines, 2 little trampolines, one under each foot, and you can sort of play, and it's a little bit wobbly. So these 2 sides of the body are just, they're always sort of playing and alternating. This is what we want to feel. So when we stand in a posture like riding horse posture, where everything is symmetrical about the center, it should feel like it's always wanting to sort of just flop over. It's like I'm really poised on the top of a hill, about to tip either side into rotation of some sort. And I want to really get that poised edge, very delicate, rather than just clamp it with my mind. So it's a certain quality of relaxation. Okay, well, let's just get that circuit going nicely. So down the outside, up the inside. So here now we're getting just a visualization going, which is this circuit around the leg. So down, flows down the outside from my sacroiliac. So it's like the buttock and the joint between the sacrum and the hip bone relaxes. So that it can feel like there's something just dropping down the outside of the leg. And then you just turn back a little bit this way. But you have to tighten here a little bit. So just feel the contraction inside the belly. It's very subtle. You don't want it to be too violent. The only thing, if you do something, especially in a Tai Chi context, the teacher tells you to do something and you do it. The only thing you can guarantee is that you've got it wrong. And so we have to just work in a very subtle way. So we just work in a very relaxed way, just really just going for the relaxation. And then just having a hint. And with John, one of John's favorite phrases was just a whisper. So it's like a whisper of the technique. So here, down here, there's just, ooh. It's almost like I want to find the tension that's already there rather than produce attention or induce attention. So I'm going down this leg. So that's relatively easy. It's like relaxing the buttock. And then here, so that draw, it's more like an interest. It's like you sense a feeler, a tentacle out, and you touch something, and now you're interested in it, so you draw it towards you. So So just a supple tension in the belly to draw it up. If there's too much tension in the belly, then it will tend to seize up the joints, the hip joints and the sacroiliacs. You want those to really remain open. So that relaxation that gets me over contains this draw, this tension. The relaxation is like an external layer to this internal tension. So the relaxation is like an expansion. And the tension is like just it's a contraction, but also coming into a ball, if you like. So it's like a reduction of the surface area. So it's like surface tension. It's just the surface tension is somehow pulling, the tension is pulling you into like a sphere into the dantian. So when I relax, it's something flows from that almost in a straight line down. But then within that, there's this containing pull. So the straight line that is flowing down returns. It returns into this ball, which is your dantian, or the emanating field of your dantian, this sphericity that you contain. Okay, so now let's just come back to here. So now just really feel the cave. Yeah, so this container that you've made, which contains your dantian. But the dantian is right at the back. And so from your sacrum, it's expanding and relaxing outwards. And it's that really that gives the feet this play. So that duality, which we're looking for now, that sort of play between the two sides, that's what you feel when you get a little bit tipsy or a little bit drunk, you know, and you've got this sort of woozy imbalance in the body. And it's a good sign. It just means part of you has just let go. You're no longer holding on to your two halves and locking them together in this illusion of unity. You're allowing this play, which is then introducing a completely new energy, which you'd previously locked out. Okay. So now just feel the down chair. Now what we want to do now is just start turning, just very gently. Yeah, so just turn, use the legs to turn the hips. Yeah, so can I stay with that expanding relaxation as I turn? Yeah. So remember that feeling, you know, we had just now of rolling, of tipping. Now when you turn, that's naturally there because it's like this happens as you turn. So as you turn in a relaxed way, the leg you're turning towards tends to slip under, and the leg you're coming out of tends to roll over. So we have this rolling feeling as soon as you start turning, using the legs to just ease the two hips around. So you've got like a natural, this ball rolling. So just feel that. It's like the opposite of waving hands. You know, waving hands, we'd have this hand up, now it's this hand. So it's more like yielding and attacking. Yeah, so you're yielding here, which is taking you sinking here. And then the other side is rising relatively. So as soon as you start turning in a relaxed way, you've got this roll, and now we just want to go with that. Normally we would try and prevent it because we'd want to keep this semblance of a vertical spine. But now we're not worried about that. We're just trying to open it up and find the detail that we've been locking out. So as I turn, this is coming over. Yeah. All the time feeling your 2 feet with this degree of independence. So by starting off just trying to get this really even, yeah, we find this natural sort of wobble that just comes from this term being the product of 2 things rather than 1. So these 2 legs are trying to produce this rotation, and it's just causing this sort of subtle wobble. Okay, so as we continue, so if you've got the ability to just concentrate in a soft way, so to keep the mind present on what you're doing but without being rigid, then the movements will get a continuity, like an elastic continuity. Yeah, so we started off working from the feet to produce this sort of relaxed, wobbly movement. Now, when it gets that thread of continuity, then we get this phenomenon called switching, which is where everything seems to reverse. So there comes a point where it shifts from being generated by the feet on the ground to actually being generated deep in the waist, in the dantian and close to the spine. Yeah, so now there's something here that's just tightening, like some elastic that's tightening up in order to produce this direction, and then to produce this direction. Yeah? And I can just choose with my mind to switch from my feet or back to the dantian. So it's like it gives us a new vantage. So we start off by critically being outside ourselves, trying to produce this sort of energetic structure. And then once it's established and we're relaxed, we can just slip into it. It's like getting into this spaceship or the car. And then suddenly you're in the driving seat, as they say. And so now I'm here. And this movement is being produced by this elasticity rather than this pressure on the ground. And what enables that switching is what we call spirit. Yeah? So something in me just sparks, ooh, okay, now. Yeah, so you just make that decision, say, okay, now I'm in the thick of it and I'm working. Now you could have made that decision right at the very beginning, but of course then you wouldn't have all this detail and all this shimmer, this delicacy, this softness. And the softness wouldn't come naturally, you know, from that hard spirit that's just made a sort of willful decision. So it's like you have to start gently from the ground and let your structure build up. Ooh. Okay, now let's just bring it back And just see how it feels, yeah? So to me, it feels just much more sort of spherical, like I have this ball here, and I'm just all these sort of concentric layers of sphericity. Okay, now let's just try a little bit of just contract, but very, very gently. So just contracting in, almost like it's just starting in the mind, like a mood. Because I don't want all this to seize up when I tense. If anything, as I contract my down chair, all the joints closest to it, the sacroiliacs, the hips, they should spring open. So pulling that. So it's very much like a muscle, the down chair. It's not a bone at all. So as I just contract it, especially my sacroiliacs, they really burst open, and I suddenly feel the ground that much more. So this is like a down chair exercise. Treating the down chair as like one thing. This sort of center, this sort of muscular internal center that's quite deep inside the body. So the waist is really just the dual aspect of the down chair. It's like, so in Taoism, everything that is one splits into two. So there's a left and a right side to the down chair. And when you get those two working in tandem, then you get turning from the waist. But first of all, we just need to establish its singularity, its oneness. Now let's just, so the same sort of idea, but let's just try one side at a time, if you like. Yeah. But so it's going to come with a bit of a turn. So I reach out, so this is the expansion phase, and then the contraction phase will just turn me slightly this way. Yeah, so just try the one side. And just feel how, as I expand, it's a bit like this, what we did at the beginning. So it's tending to connect with this leg. And as I contract, it tips me over the other way. So I tend to connect with this leg. Yeah. So it's like we've split the down chair into two halves and we're only working this right side now. So, and we want to get that feeling of, isn't it? Something inside is expanding, something inside is contracting. So try and turn the hips as little as possible. Yeah, so we're not really working the hips, so we don't really want this thing happening. It's all coming from the hip and the leg here. I'm just trying to get this muscularity inside. Yeah? So when I reach out here, I have to concentrate on not doing this with my hip, so that this expansion comes from the muscle rather than the movement of the bone. And then I just tighten, something in here tightens, and my hand is pulled in. And just feel the mood. You know, so when you're tightening, it's quite grim and determined. And then when you're expanding, it's quite courageous because something in you really has to come out and reach. And then here I'm pulling. Yeah. So as you expand, it tends to connect with the opposite leg. Yeah. So the energy that comes out is cross energy. And then as you contract, you draw it into the same leg. Yeah, so you yield into the same leg and you attack from the opposite leg. So if you're going to yield and attack the same arm, you just need certain dexterity. So here I'm draw and want to feel that tightening inside, almost like I have to fold preferentially on that side. So I just contract here. So it's just a down chin exercise, but just one side of it. And just seeing how that brings in turning, a natural twisting action. And also a tipping from side to side action. So one. Contract. Yeah. So this is like the exercise where we just hold on to the bar, the imaginary bar, just let everything flop down. And then I just contract in here and just let that. So it's a strange feeling of actually keeping this hip forwards, but contracting inside to pull the arm in. Yeah, so when just assume you're not allowed to use the hips. You have to keep the hips. So this is the best way to practice this, really, the easiest way to practice is sitting down, because when you're sitting down, you can't move your hips. Yeah. But it's a good practice to do it when you're standing up, because you really have to. Part of your mind is considering the stillness of my hips, and another part of my mind is considering the movement of my spine and my waist. So draw out. So you're reaching out and you're pulling something in order to eat it, kill it, look at it. Yeah, so that draw in, that tightening lends this elasticity so that when I send my tentacle out, it's that much more connected. It's much less chance of me losing track of it. Draw. Yeah, so it's those internal muscles in the belly that we're really sort of looking at. And now the same thing, but on the other side. So again, just always just start anew, start fresh. Don't try and immediately catch the same feeling you've developed on the other side. So just let it be different, let it be start from the beginning. So just feel that stretch. This hip is staying where it is. This hand is reaching out as though from here. And then I just contract this side. And the hand starts coming in. So as you reach out, you tend to lean into this leg a little bit. You know, because we're single weighted, because we've got this, we're always going to wobble, and we want that. We don't want to lock it out. So here, this tends to tip me this side, so connect me with this foot. And then when I turn here, I tend to tip over this side and just naturally make a connection with this foot. Making sure this hip doesn't go back. So I'm pulling my hand, so the distance between my hand and my hip is stretching and contracting. It's a difficult, yeah, because the hip, we're so used to moving the hips that it's difficult to get that feeling of the hand and the hip moving towards each other rather than moving together in concert. So here they're moving towards each other, and then here they're moving apart. Yeah, so it's like a breathing. Just feel how it changes. Yeah? So when you start off doing something, you're aiming for real sort of relaxation and lightness and airiness. And then gradually, as it becomes more and more connected, everything will just get a lot tighter and heavier. Yeah, so it'll feel like you're stretching quite tough rubber or elastic. You know, so, So it's this musculature that we're sort of looking at here and trying to exercise and develop. This tends to be what we've lost with our relatively mind-centered lives. You know, we don't use the body that much anymore. So imagine, you know, you're a farm worker and you're really shoveling or throwing or catching. You know, these muscles inside here all around your spine would be so strong. And the thing you'd be most used to really is twisting the spine, so twisting the shoulders against the hips. This tends to be what we've lost. So we don't have this internal musculature in the belly and around the spine and up into the chest. And with that musculature, there comes a mood, which is its use. So when you use those muscles, you just have this toughness. Yeah? You have like an internal toughness that's just able to make very quick decisions without any regard to your own sort of personal gain or safety. You just do what has to be done. Yeah? So it's a sort of the ability to act without thinking. So it's like wrestling, and it's wrestling energy. It's the energy, it's the strength that you would use if you were really going to wrestle someone. So Tai Chi is like it's a boxing art that uses wrestle energy. So this is what's interesting about it. And then you can feel that to actually really connect with this contraction, you need the ground. You know, you need 2 feet firmly planted. You need your root. Okay, now let's just try now both hands together. And just try your best just to keep the hips relatively still. And so just So it does, in a sense, it doesn't really feel like Tai Chi because we're not sort of turning. But we're expanding and contracting. Now what's interesting about this is that you have to have the expansion and the contraction at the same time. So half of you is contracting and the other half is expanding. Yeah, so and then you really feel it from your legs. Yeah, so as you reach out, your hip is moving back, and as you pull in, your hip is moving forward. So it's the opposite of normal. It takes a lot of getting the mind around. But it's exactly what would happen if you were wrestling. Yeah. So if you were trying to pull someone towards you in that tussle, in the heat of the tussle, then your pull is as likely to pull you towards them as it is them towards you. So you're that intimate, you're that locked together that is all you're interested in is the movement between you. You lose any sense of your own position in the room. So it's just this breathing machine. It's like making love. Yeah? So when you're making love, you're moving against each other. So it's this, it's not this. If you're doing that, you both get really frustrated, yeah? Because there'll be no friction. So it's that pure tearing silk, the image of tearing the silk. One moving one way, hand moving one way, hip moving the other, hand moving back, hip moving forwards, hand moving forwards, hip moving back. Yeah? So it's that produces the elastic. Ooh. So it's like an out of phaseness between your upper body and your lower. So it's like your legs are doing one thing, your arms are doing the opposite. And your dantian is struggling to keep these two together in the middle. Cool. Okay. So now let's just bring it back to here. So again, that feeling of the feet. So we're standing still, but we haven't locked out the turn. So the body is wanting to sort of slip side to side all the time. So you want to produce stillness, not an image of stillness. Yeah, this is the big problem with the mind. The mind produces images, it doesn't produce a reality. The reality is my body. So the mind will try and lock the body and freeze it in order to produce an image of stillness. But the body's stillness is quite different. If it's alive, the body is moving. That's what life is. Life is movement. Yeah, so it's shifting and shimmering. And in particular, it's just trying to slip around. And it's that's soft. It's the turning that's the soft. This is why John always used to say that turning the waist is the most important of all the principles. You think it would be sink and relax, but that, without the turning, the sink and relax is just heavy and dead. It's the turning that produces the liveliness, that shimmering movement. So this play of the feet, in one sense, is just your well-oiled willingness to just slip one side or the other all the time. Okay, now let's just try that qigong we've been doing, but keep that feeling. Yeah. So whenever we do something that's symmetrical, it's always sort of wanting to slip one way or the other. Yeah. So you're playing all the time. And then the same thing but above the head. So reaching, keeping the sacrum heavy, so your bum doesn't stick out too much. Now just keeping the arms straight and bringing the hands together, feeling that receding here, and then just let it all rise to here. And then just down, and then again from here. So feel as though you're dipping into the ground, you're bringing up this mist. So feel the thickness of the air, feel its viscosity, dragging against your skin. Just imagine you're outside and you're doing this in the rain. So the rain's dripping off you. So the dantian is heavy, it doesn't want to move, but it doesn't mind turning on any plane. So it can turn, it can roll, it can roll back and forth this way, but it can also turn. So that's a well-oiled dantian. And if you wanted to intensify it, just come more and more into the front of the foot. Yes, so the more into the front of the foot you come, the more you tend to connect with the spirit. Until if you came off the heels altogether, then you're like a little devil. You're sort of, the spirit really comes up. So when you're in the heels, you tend to be into the sort of the rooting and the stillness and the heavy sort of earth type energy. When you come onto the front of the foot, you're much more connecting with the fire inside. So the more sunk, the more solid, the more stable you become, the greater the risks you can take. Yeah, so that's so we're trying to just stay on that sort of shaking, wobbling edge where there's always the chance of absolute failure. Feel the dantian, it's holding something together. Yeah, so without the dantian, your spirit would blast you apart. Yeah, this is why people don't use spirit anymore, because they don't have a dantian. Think of one of those real power lifters doing the Olympics, and just lifting this astonishing weight over their head. Just imagine their dantian to actually explode spirit with such ferocity. Okay, one more. So up. And down. And now just earth here. So feel that contraction. Okay.